Hello and welcome. My name is Erica Jacobson, and I am the Caregiver Support Program Manager at the Sioux Falls VA Healthcare System. And I am going to briefly talk about various appeal and review options for the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, primarily, that are available for the Caregiver Support Program. So, why might somebody decide to file an appeal? There is a couple different reasons. The main one would be denial for the program of comprehensive assistance. Sometimes people are approved for the program, but they might disagree on the stipend level that they were approved at, so they will file an appeal for that. Sometimes people will file an appeal because they were revoked or discharged from the program. Otherwise, there are sometimes one-off various other reasons where someone might file an appeal or clinical review for some decision that was made in relation to the program. So this document here, this is called VA Form 10305. This document is sent out every time a decision is made in relation to the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers. And it kind of goes through an overview of the various review and appeal options that are available for veterans and caregivers in our program. But I'm going to break it down step by step and explain each one in a little bit more detail and hopefully a little bit more user-friendly way for you. So, the Department of Veterans Affairs has made a couple different YouTube videos explaining some of these appeal and review options. So I am going to play those and then just do a little bit of explaining on some of the things that they are talking about.
Welcome to the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, PCAFC, Review and Appeal Options video series. Today, we will talk about VA Form 10-305, your rights to seek further review of PCAFC decisions. This two-part video series will focus on options available for individuals who disagree with a PCAFC decision and wish to pursue further review or appeal of the decision. In the first part, you will learn about key dates and PCAFC decisions and disagreements. In the second video, you will learn about the options available to you if you disagree with your PCAFC decision. Let's get started. As a veteran or caregiver, you have several options available if you disagree with your PCAFC decision. The options available are dependent on the date when the decision was issued. February 19th, 2019 is an important date to remember. In the following scenario, we will review an interaction between a veteran and his local Caregiver Support Program, CSP, team regarding his desire to appeal his PCAFC decision.
Hello, Elaine. I'm calling because I don't agree with my PCAFC decision, but I'm not sure what to do. Would you be able to help me?
Hi, Steve. I'd be happy to help. What specific questions do you have?
I've heard about some new review and appeal options for PCAFC, but I don't know which one I should choose. Can you provide more information on my options?
Absolutely. There are different types of review or appeal options you may pursue depending on when your PCAFC decision was made. Decisions made before February 19, 2019 were issued under the Legacy Appeal System. Decisions made on or after February 19, 2019 were issued under the Modernized Appeal System implemented by the Appeals Modernization Act, or AMA. Any PCAFC decision may also be reviewed under the VHA clinical review process, also referred to as the VHA clinical appeals process. When you disagree with your decision, you will want to review VA Form 10-305. This form provides information on the review and appeal options available to you if you disagree with your decision. Let's talk about the legacy appeals process first. It looks like you were issued your PCAFC decision on September 4th, 2018. As I mentioned, since the decision was made before February 19th, 2019, your decision falls under the Legacy Appeals System. If you wish to appeal this decision, you will need to submit a Notice of Disagreement, or NOD, VA Form 10-307. This form is where you list the specific decision that you disagree with and the date of the decision. Once VA receives your NOD, the team will review your case. If VA cannot grant the matter in your favor, we will issue what is called a Statement of the Case, or SOC. The SOC explains the PCAFC decision and the reasons the benefits you applied for cannot be granted. Once you receive your SOC, you have a few options if you continue to disagree with the decision. For instance, you can either choose to continue to pursue an appeal to the Board of Veterans' Appeals under the Legacy Appeals process, or opt into the Modern Appeals process, which provides different review options, including a different process for appealing to the board. Just keep in mind that once you opt into the Modern process, you cannot return to the Legacy Appeals process. All PCAFC decisions issued before February 19, 2019 must initially adhere to the Legacy Appeals process. However, after receiving an SOC, the individual can choose to enter the AMA process at that time.
Oh, great. Thank you for helping me to understand the process for appealing my decision from 2018. I also have a claim that I filed last month. Since that PCAFC decision will come after February 19th, 2019, what are the review and appeal options available to me if I disagree with that decision?
I'm glad you asked. Based on the Appeals and Modernization Act, AMA, there are new review and appeals options available. These options include submitting a supplemental claim, requesting a higher level review, or appealing to the Board of Veterans' Appeals. These options are available for PCAFC decisions issued on or after February 19, 2019.
Wow, that is a lot of options.
Yes, there are a lot of options. It is always a great idea to review VA Form 10-305 so you can stay up to date on your options.
Can you tell me what kind of issues I can appeal?
Yes, let's review some disagreement decisions. The following are some examples of types of PCAFC disagreements. These are the same regardless of the date a decision was issued. Application determination. When applying for PCAFC, a veteran may not meet eligibility criteria, or the primary family caregiver applicant may not be designated and approved for participation in the program. Another type of decision could be for revocation or discharge. For instance, if you and your caregiver were determined to be eligible for the program in the past, but were then discharged because your reassessment found that you were no longer in need of personal care services. Stipend amount. You may be approved for PCAFC, but disagree with the stipend assigned. There could also be other reasons you disagree with the PCAFC decisions. You need to list the reason on the form at the time of submission.
Thanks for providing the PCAFC disagreement reasons.
Yes, of course. Before we move on, I would like to share some resources with you. The PCAFC Decisions Options for Further Review and Appeal VA Caregiver Support Program website is where you will find all the forms we have discussed today. Please go to www.caregiver.va.gov.
This video focused on key dates and types of PCAFC decisions with which you may disagree. Next up, you can learn more about the options available to you to appeal your PCAFC decision. Be sure to review part 2 of this video next. And until then, thank you veterans for your service. And for the many caregivers, thank you for all you do in support of your veterans.
Okay. So we're going to watch part 2 of this video, and then we'll talk about all the different forms and everything that they are referencing in these videos.
Hi again, and welcome to part 2 of the VA Form 10-305 video series. This topic will review the options available to veterans and caregivers if they disagree with their PCAFC decision made on or after February 19th, 2019. Ready to learn more? Let's go.
Steve, remember I mentioned the review and appeal options available through the Appeal Modernization Act, known as AMA, if you disagree with the PCAFC decision made on or after February 19th, 2019? Let's review those in more detail. The first two options I want to talk about are higher level review and supplemental claim. Both options are available for decisions rendered on or after February 19th, 2019, or when opting in from the legacy appeals process after receiving your statement of the case. If you don't have new and relevant evidence to submit, you can request a higher level review. You can use this option when you would like a higher level reviewer to review the PCAFC decision you disagree with. This will be a reviewer who was not involved in the original PCAFC decision. For this type of review, you cannot submit new information. The decision will be based on information available to the VA at the time of the original decision. However, you will have the opportunity to point out errors you believe the VA may have made. You can add this information to VA Form 20-0996 or request an informal conference. The next option I will discuss is the supplemental claim. Use this option when you want to include new and relevant information for review. Be aware that new evidence means information not previously considered by VA, so it was not part of their decision, and relevant evidence means information that tends to prove or disprove something in your claim. You can submit evidence yourself or ask VA to get the evidence for you, such as medical records from a VA medical center, other federal facilities, or from your private healthcare provider. VA will be unable to accept your supplemental claim if potentially new evidence is not identified or provided. You will submit VA Form 20-0995 when you want VA to consider new and relevant evidence. The third option is to appeal directly to the Board of Veterans' Appeals. This process is different than the legacy appeals process, though. In particular, you must use VA Form 10182, Decision Review Request, Board Appeal, Notice of Disagreement, for decisions rendered on or after February 19th, 2019, to request an appeal to the board. I should also point out that you can only request one path at a time, such as a higher level review, supplemental claim, or board appeal for a specific issue. Once one of these options is selected, a decision must be received, or you must withdraw the request for review or appeal before another one of these options is selected. Also remember that once the board renders a decision, that decision is final in that specific matter. However, you can still submit a supplemental claim if you have new information that was not considered at the time of the decision. We've talked about the legacy appeal process for PCAFC decisions issued prior to February 19th, 2019, and the options available under AMA for decisions issued on or after February 19th, 2019. I also want to mention that the VHA clinical review process, also known as the VHA clinical appeal process, remains available regardless of the date your decision was issued. A centralized eligibility and appeals team, or CEAT, a group of PCAFC trained, interprofessional, and licensed practitioners within a Veterans Integrated Service Network, or VISN, conducts the VHA clinical review of PCAFC decisions. Keep in mind, individuals cannot pursue this type of review and a board appeal for the same issue at the same time. The VHA clinical review process is available in tandem with other VHA review options. There is no specific form required to request a VHA clinical review, but the request must be in writing and submitted to your local patient advocate. This is a lot of information I've given you today. Just know that anytime you want to review these options again or obtain copies of the form, you can go to the CSP Review and Appeal website, which has a specific page all about PCAFC review and appeal options. Please go to www.caregiver.va.gov. Lastly, you can also call the Caregiver Support Line, as staff can answer general questions about the review and appeal options available to veterans and caregivers. And of course, I'm only a phone call away.
I am so glad to hear all of the review and appeal options available to veterans and caregivers. Thank you for going over all of this with me.
We have covered a lot of information about the options available to veterans and caregivers when they disagree with a PCAFC decision. You should now be able to explain the PCAFC review and appeal options available.
If you would like more information about the Caregiver Support Program, including your decision under PCAFC, you can contact the Caregiver Support Line at 1-855-260-3274 toll-free, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also receive help with your review or appeal requests from a veteran service organization representative, an attorney, or agent accredited by VA. For a list of VA-recognized organizations and VA-accredited individuals who are authorized to help with these review and appeal options, visit https://www.va.gov/ogc/accreditation/index.asp.
Thanks for taking the time to review Part 2 of VA Form 10-305. Please tune in for more videos covering forms relevant to requesting further review or appeal of PCAFC decisions. Thank you, veterans, for your service. And for our many caregivers, thank you for all you do in support of your veterans.
Okay. So one thing I'll mention is the hours for the caregiver support line have changed since they've made that video. So I will have those posted at the some point in this video, the updated hours for you. And you can always find that at caregiver.va.gov. But just to recap some of the options they went over there in those two little short videos and the many forms that they listed. So the first appeal option that's available to folks is the legacy appeals process, and that is for any PCAFC decision that was made on or before February 19th, 2019. So to file an appeal under the legacy process, you need to have that VA form 10307, which is linked here, and it is linked in that first document that I showed you that anyone would get when a PCAFC decision is rendered. But if you just type in this form VA form number into Google, it will come up. There is a link there as well. You might use this form if you're going to file this kind of appeal. It's not required, but say you needed information about that original denial, such as dates or other things to fill out this form. You can file this VA Form 10306, which they will mention a little later in another video I'm going to show you, called Request for Information about Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers Decision. And it's just asking for that specific information about your original decision. So anytime you have these VA forms with all these numbers behind it, these will always get sent to the Evidence Intake Center in Janesville, Wisconsin. So this address will come up a few times in this presentation, and it's on a lot of these documents. So it's a really important address to remember for these kind of forms. Like this is where all of these go to. So appeal options 2, 3, and 4 for PCAFC decisions is you can either decide to file a appeal with the Board of Veterans Appeals, and you would need that VA form 10182, this notice of disagreement. And I know these are really small pictures, but you can always type these into Google and these forms will come right up, and these are the links for them too, if you want to pause the video so you can write that down. You also can file what's called a higher level review, and that's VA Form 200996. That's when you have a more experienced reviewer review the case and render a decision. You also can file a supplemental claim, which is a VA Form 200995, and that's linked here. But if you're going to choose one of these options, you can only choose one per PCAFC decision to go down through. So these are 3 paths, you can only choose one. And these options are for any decisions made on or after February 19th, 2019. But just note that all PCAFC decisions, regardless of when they were made, can be appealed to the Board of Veterans Appeals. There's just some nuances with that, so keeping that in mind. So we're going to watch this video now, which goes more in depth about how you would file a supplemental claim if you wanted to go down that route.
Hi. Welcome to the Caregiver Support Program's Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, or PCAFC, Review and Appeal Options video series. In this video, we will discuss VA Form 20-0995, Decision Review Request, Supplemental Claim. This option is available as a part of the Veterans Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act of 2017, also known as the Appeals Modernization Act, or AMA, which created a modernized review system that provides additional options for seeking review or appeal of VA decisions. The supplemental claim is available for decisions issued on or after February 19, 2019, or when opting in from the legacy appeals process, after you receive your statement of the case. You will be provided with a discussion between a caregiver who wishes to file a supplemental claim, and the local CSP team member. At the conclusion of this video, you should be able to describe when to use VA Form 20-0995 for a supplemental claim, identify the issues of disagreement regarding PCAFC decisions for a supplemental claim, and explain what is considered new and relevant evidence. Let's begin.
Hi John, thank you for taking my call. As you may recall, the veteran I care for received his PCAFC decision April 12, 2022, and it was denied. He has some additional information that he would like to submit related to his case. Can you let me know what steps we can take to get the additional information submitted?
Joan, good to hear from you. When you disagree with your PCAFC decision and want to provide additional information that is new and relevant to support your claim, you can file a supplemental claim. VA Form 20-0995 is the form used to submit the supplemental claim. This option is available for decisions rendered on or after February 19, 2019, or when opting in from the legacy appeals process. The supplemental claim provides the opportunity for a new review of an issue that was previously decided by VA when new and relevant evidence is available that VA did not previously have. If you need help completing the form, you may contact your accredited representative such as an attorney, claims agent, or veteran service organizations, also known as a VSO representative. These individuals can help you determine if a supplemental claim is the correct path for you, and to ensure your form is completed fully and accurately. If you have general questions about the supplemental claims process, or appealing a PCAFC decision, you may contact VA's Caregiver Support Line, CSL, at 1-855-260-3274. Their staff will be able to assist with general questions about the PCAFC appeals process. Let's review the sections of the form, so you are familiar with them. Part 1 of the form asks for the claimant's identifying information. In this section, you will enter information about the veteran and the claimant. This can be confusing, so let me explain what I mean by this. For the purposes of this form, the claimant can be the veteran or the caregiver, but in order to process the claim, we must have the veteran's information on the form. Therefore, you will always enter the veteran's information in boxes 1 through 6, even if the caregiver is the person filing the claim. We need this information to be able to locate the veteran in our system. If we are unable to locate the veteran, we will need to mail a letter to gather more information, which could result in a delay in processing your claim. After filling out the information about the veteran in boxes 1 through 6, you will then need to fill out information in box 7, as to who is the claimant. Note, there must only be one claimant per form submission. If the veteran is the claimant, and is submitting the form, box 7 can be left blank, and in box 8 veteran, should be checked. If you, as the caregiver, are the claimant, you will place your name in box 7, and in box 8 you should check the appropriate relationship as veteran spouse, veteran's child, veteran's parent, or other, and specify caregiver. In boxes 9 to 11, the claimant would enter their information. So, for instance, if you are the claimant, you would put your address, telephone number, and email address if you have one. If the veteran is the claimant, they would list their information in these boxes. In box 12, you must select Veterans Health Administration. It is very important that this box is selected correctly. PCAFC is a program in the Veterans Health Administration. By selecting Veterans Health Administration, it will assist with routing the form to our office so we can process your claim in a timely manner. If an incorrect box is selected, it may not be sent to the Caregiver Support Program, which will result in either a delay in receiving your claim, or we may not receive it at all. In Part 2 of the form, called Issues for Supplemental Claim, you will need to list the issues with which you disagree. Starting in Box 13A, you will list each issue of disagreement regarding your PCAFC decisions that you want reviewed as part of your supplemental claim. A few examples of issues of disagreement are PCAFC application denial, PCAFC stipend level assigned, or discharge or revocation from PCAFC. For instance, in your case, if you disagree with the decision that the veteran you work with was found ineligible for participation in PCAFC in April 2022, you would write PCAFC application denial in Box 13A. For each issue of disagreement listed in Box 13A, you will also need to enter the PCAFC decision date for that issue. This can be found on your PCAFC decision letter. So, in your case, you disagree with your application being denied in April 2022, and your decision letter is dated April 12, 2022, that is the date you would include in Box 13B. If you do not have enough information to fill out Part 2, you can submit a VA Form 10-306, Request for Information about PCAFC Decisions, and VA will provide you information about your PCAFC decisions. In Part 3 of the form, called New and Relevant Evidence, you will list out the new and relevant information you are submitting to support your claim. You can also identify relevant records that you would like VA to obtain for you. But note, the evidence you submit must meet the standard of being both new and relevant in order for it to be considered. Let's take a closer look at what it means for information to be new and relevant. New information is information that was not available or reviewed at the time of the original decision. Let me provide an example. If the veteran was seeing a private provider instead of going to the VA to receive medical care, and VA was not aware of this before making the decision, this is considered new. If, however, VA knew a veteran was seeing a private provider and was able to obtain those records to consider when making their decision, those same records would not be new. Additionally, I should point out that if the veteran was only seeing VA providers for care, these records would not be considered new because they were already on file with the VA and reviewed when the decision was originally made. For information to be considered relevant, it needs to prove or disprove something in your claim. In the example I just gave you about private provider medical records, these records would only be considered relevant if the veteran claims that they should be eligible for the program, and these private provider records relate to his need for a caregiver based on his medical conditions. While new and relevant evidence can relate to any element of the previously denied claim, it is most helpful if the evidence addresses the issue leading to the previous denial. For instance, if you disagree with the decision that the veteran did not require personal care services related to assistance with activities of daily living, or ADLs, the most helpful information to provide would be related to the veteran's functioning and ADL needs from the time the veteran filed an application to enter the program, until time of the original decision. Remember, the decision you are disputing was in the past, so we need information regarding that specific time frame to support your claim that the VA made an incorrect decision. The time frame is from the date you submitted your application to PCAFC until the original decision date. If the veteran's condition changed after the decision was made, it is better to submit a new application to PCAFC so we can obtain an updated assessment of the veteran's needs. If you know of evidence and want VA to obtain the information for you, be sure to provide VA with enough information about the evidence so they can request it from the person or agency that has it. If it's a VA medical facility or other federal department or agency, VA will retrieve the records you have identified. a release of information is not needed for these agencies. However, vet centers are an exception and require a completed VA Form 10-5345, request for an authorization to release health information, in order to obtain those records. When the records are from a non-VA or federal agency, VA will require the appropriate release of information to be included in the supplemental claims request. Please include the completed VA Form 21-4142, authorization to disclose information to the Department of Veterans Affairs, and VA Form 21-4142A, general release for medical provider information to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Both completed forms are needed to assist in processing your request. If the holder of the evidence declines to give it to VA, asks for a fee to provide it, or otherwise cannot get the evidence, VA will notify you and provide you with an opportunity to submit the information or evidence. Prior to submitting your supplemental claim, it is important to include the information you want reviewed as part of your claim, or attach the appropriate release of information. If this information is not provided at the time of submission, VA will need to send written correspondence requesting the missing information, which will lead to a delay in processing your claim. Part 4, 5103 Notice Acknowledgement, is only completed for claims related to disability compensation, pension, DIC, and accrued benefit claims. This section should be left blank for supplemental claims related to PCAFC decisions. The final part, called Certification and Signature, is where you will sign the supplemental claim certifying that the statements on the form are true and correct to the best of the claimant's or authorized representative's knowledge and belief. It is important to note that the identified claimant will need to sign the form. If the form is not signed properly, this will result in a delay in processing your request. There are 3 possible options for signature. If the veteran is the claimant and submitting the form, the veteran must sign the form in Box 17A and date the form in Box 17B. If the caregiver is the claimant and listed in Box 7, the caregiver must sign the form in Box 17A and date the form in Box 17B. An authorized representative can also complete the form on behalf of the veteran or caregiver. For claims with an authorized representative, there are very specific requirements. In particular, an authorized representative's signature will not be accepted unless at the time of submission of your claim a valid VA Form 2122 or 2122A is attached, or can be found on file with VA. If one of these forms is not already on file with VA, you will need to submit the appropriate form with your supplemental claim. The authorized representative will sign the form in Box 17A, print their name in Box 17C, and date the form in Box 17B. However, if the veteran is unable to sign, based on very specific criteria, then an alternate signer may need to complete and sign the form. More specifically, if an alternate signature is present, a VA Form 21-0972 must be attached, or found on file with the VA at the time of submission of this claim. An alternate signer may be a court-appointed representative, an attorney, someone with power of attorney, a person responsible for care of the claimant, or a manager or principal officer acting on behalf of an institution responsible for the care of an individual. An alternate signer may be used in instances where the claimant is under age 18, deemed mentally incompetent to complete the form accurately, or is someone who is physically unable to complete the form. The alternate signer will sign the form in Box 18A and print their name in Box 18C. They will need to date the form in Box 18B. Once complete, you will submit the form via mail to Veterans Affairs Evidence Intake Center, P.O. Box 5154, Janesville, Wisconsin 53547. It is important that your form is mailed to this address, as this will help to ensure it goes to the appropriate office for processing. Using another method, like faxing the form, or using the Veterans Benefits Administration, or VBA's online Quick Submit portal, will result in a delay in getting it to the appropriate office for processing.
Great, thank you for going over how to file a supplemental claim using VA Form 20-0995. I feel more prepared now on how to proceed.
This concludes the video for VA Form 20-0995. You should now be able to describe when to use VA Form 20-0995 for a supplemental claim, identify the issues for a supplemental claim, and explain what is considered new and relevant evidence. Be sure to tune in for more videos on PCAFC decisions.
Okay, so that is supplemental claims. Now we will watch one more video about higher level reviews.
Hi. Welcome to the Caregiver Support Program's video series on the review and appeal options for veterans or caregivers who want to appeal a Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, or PCAFC decision. In this video, we will discuss VA Form 20-0996, Decision Review Request, Higher Level Review. This option is available as a part of the Veterans Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act of 2017, also known as the Appeals Modernization Act, or AMA, which created a modernized review system that provides additional options for seeking review or appeal of VA decisions. Higher level review is available for decisions issued on or after February 19, 2019, or when opting in from the legacy appeals process, after you receive your statement of the case. You can use this option when you believe an error was made when VA made your PCAFC decision, and you would like a more experienced, or senior decision maker, to review your case. Please note that you will not be able to submit additional evidence with a higher level review. Rather, only evidence that was on record at the time of the decision can be reviewed and included as part of this decision. You will be provided with a discussion between a veteran who wishes to file a higher level review, and the local CSP team member. At the conclusion of this video, you should be able to describe when to use VA Form 20-0996 for a higher level review, explain how to complete VA Form 20-0996, and understand the informal conference process. Let's learn more about this option.
Hi Deborah. I was reading about some options available for further review of my PCAFC decision dated November 20th, 2023. I think I would like to request a higher level review, but I am not sure. Can you provide more information about this option?
Hi Kim. Yes, I can provide more information. VA Form 20-0996 is used to request a higher level review. This option is available for decisions issued on or after February 19, 2019, or when opting in from the legacy appeals process. This will be a new review of your case by a more experienced or senior decision maker on the higher level review team. The reviewer will determine whether an error occurred that would impact the decision VA previously issued. If you select this option, you cannot submit additional evidence with the review. It's also important to know that you must submit a higher level review within 1 year of your decision. In your case, you mentioned that your decision was dated November 20, 2023. Therefore, you would need to submit your request before November 20, 2024. Sometimes the forms can be confusing. Let's go over each section together. Section 1 of the form asks for the veteran's identification information. We need this information to be able to locate the veteran in our system. Please include as much information as possible in this section. If we are unable to locate the veteran, we will need to mail a letter to gather more information, which could result in a delay in processing your claim. Section 2 of the form asks for the claimant's identification information if it is other than the veteran. For the purposes of this form, the claimant can be the veteran or the caregiver that is requesting review of their PCAFC decision. So, if a caregiver is the claimant and submitting the form, they will enter their information in this section. If the veteran is the claimant, Section 2 can be left blank. Section 3 of the form asks for the benefit type. You must select Veterans Health Administration. It is very important that this box is selected correctly. PCAFC is a program in the Veterans Health Administration. By selecting Veterans Health Administration, it will assist with routing the form to our office so we can process your claim in a timely manner. If an incorrect box is selected, it may not be sent to the Caregiver Support Program, which will result in either a delay in receiving your claim, or we may not receive it at all. Section 4 of the form asks about an optional, one-time informal conference. The informal conference is a telephone call with the higher-level reviewer assigned to your case. If you choose to have an informal conference, you will select 16A and select the best times for the higher-level reviewer to contact you in 16B. The reviewer will call the phone number that you provide on the higher-level review form to schedule a time to discuss your case with you. This is why it is important that the phone number you provide in sections 1 and 2 of the form are accurate. If you want us to speak with your authorized representative, provide their name and contact information in boxes 17A, B, and C. Additionally, the appropriate release of information documents will need to be on file with VA, or attached to the higher-level review at the time of the submission. Specifically, a valid VA Form 21-22 or 21-22A. During the call, you or your representative will have the opportunity to identify any errors that you believe VA made when making your decision. It is important to remember that additional information or evidence, such as changes in your health or care, cannot be provided as part of the informal conference. Rather, this is your opportunity to tell us what error you believe they made in making your decision. The higher-level reviewer assigned to the case will make a reasonable effort to reach the designated individual to schedule the informal conference, and if the individual is not available on the day of the scheduled informal conference, attempts will be made to reschedule. However, if after these attempts have been made and the individual cannot be reached, the higher-level reviewer will move forward with rendering the decision without holding the informal conference. Section 5 asks about issues for higher-level review. You will need to list the issues you disagree with and the VA decision date for each issue. A few examples of issues of disagreement are PCAFC application denial, PCAFC stipend/level assigned, or discharge or revocation from PCAFC. For instance, if you disagree with the decision that you were found ineligible for participation in PCAFC on November 20, 2023, you will write application denial in 18A. For each issue of disagreement listed in 18A, you will also need to enter the PCAFC decision date for that issue. This can be found on your PCAFC decision letter. So, for example, if you disagree with your application being denied in November 2023, and your decision letter is dated November 20, 2023, that is the date you would include in 18B. If you do not have enough information to fill out Section 5, you can submit a VA Form 10-306, Request for Information about PCAFC Decisions, and VA will provide you information about your PCAFC decisions. Section 6 of the form asks for certification and signature. This is a mandatory field that requests for you to certify that the statements in the form are true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief. It is important to note that the identified claimant you listed in Section 2 of the form will need to sign the form. If the form is not signed properly, this will result in a delay in processing your claim. For example, if you, the veteran, are the claimant, then you will fill out Section 1. Section 2 can be left blank. And you would sign in Section 6. However, if your caregiver is the claimant, they will fill out Section 1 with the veteran's information, Section 2 will contain their identifying information, and the caregiver would sign in Section 6. If a veteran is unable to sign based on very specific criteria, then an alternate signer may need to complete and sign the form. More specifically, if an alternate signature is present, a VA Form 21-0972 must be attached or found on file with the VA at the time of submission of this claim. An alternate signer may be a court-appointed representative, an attorney, someone with power of attorney, a person responsible for care of the claimant, or a manager or principal officer acting on behalf of an institution responsible for the care of an individual. An alternate signer may be used in instances where the claimant is under age 18, deemed mentally incompetent to complete the form accurately, or is someone who is physically unable to complete the form. The alternative signer will sign the form in Section 6. Section 7 asks for the authorized representative signature. An authorized representative can complete the form on behalf of the veteran or caregiver. For claims with an authorized representative, there are very specific requirements. In particular, an authorized representative's signature will not be accepted unless at the time of submission of your claim, a valid VA Form 21-22 or 21-22A is attached to your higher-level review, or one can be found on file with VA. The authorized representative should print their name in 20A, sign the form in 20B, and date the form in 20C.
Thank you for going over the form with me. I feel more confident with being able to fill it out. Where would I send the form?
Once complete, you will submit the form by mail to Veterans Affairs Evidence Intake Center, P.O. Box 5154, Janesville, Wisconsin 53547. It is important that your form is mailed to this address, as this will help to ensure it goes to the appropriate office for processing. Using another method, like faxing the form or using the Veterans Benefits Administration, or VBA's online Quick Submit portal, will result in a delay in getting it to the appropriate office for processing, or we may not receive it at all.
Great, thank you. If I need more help or have more questions, what should I do?
For assistance with completing the form, you may contact your accredited representative, such as an attorney, claims agent, or a representative from a Veterans Service Organization, also known as a VSO. These individuals can help you determine if a higher-level review is the correct path for you and to ensure your form is completed fully and accurately. Another option is to contact VA's Caregiver Support Line, CSL, at 1-855-260-3274, toll-free. Their staff will be able to assist with general questions about the form.
Thank you for providing this information.
This concludes the video for VA Form 20-0996, Higher Level Review. You should now be able to describe when to use VA Form 20-0996 for a higher level review, explain how to complete VA Form 20-0996, and understand the informal conference process. Be sure to tune in for more videos on PCAFC decisions.
Okay, that was a lot of information. So I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. So in that video, they talked about more VA forms that you might use in a higher level review or a supplemental claim. One is this VA form 105345, request for an authorization to release health information. So we commonly use this form in the Caregiver Support Program for veterans to sign to allow us to talk to their caregivers about their health care. But this form can be used basically asking permission to talk to a third party about a veteran's health care and other benefit related things in general. So this might be a form that you use. The 21-4142 form is when you're appointing or this is another form of release of information that's used in the claims process, and so is the 21-4142A. So it can get confusing, just like they said. But again, these forms can be found at these links. And normally a veterans service officer or organization who's going to be helping with the claim will tell you when it's appropriate to use these forms or when you will need them. So most of the time, a VSO is somebody helping with a review or an appeal, and that can guide you through that process. More forms that they talked about in that video is the 2122 VA form, which that is a form that appoints a veterans service organization as a representative. So I will talk about it a little bit here towards the end of the video, but a veterans service organization like the DAV, VFW, PAV, the acronyms go on and on. Any of these organizations can serve as a representative for a veteran or a caregiver or their survivors in a VA claim. And basically what they do is they understand these processes. They can help write the claim. They know how to get the forms, get the records, do all that stuff. And so they kind of go to bat on your behalf. So a lot of times whenever you're appealing not only decisions for caregiver, but any other sort of VA sort of claim or related decision, oftentimes people will have a veterans service organization help them do those sorts of claims. And this is a free, no cost thing to veterans. They do not have to pay to have somebody help them with a claim. There are services out there that charge, and some are not so trustworthy, but it is not something that is required. So there is another form, the 2122A, where you can appoint an individual as a representative. So somebody might use this if they're going to appoint an individual person as their representative instead of an organization. And then in those videos, they talked about this alternative signer form. So if someone besides the claimant or the veteran is going to sign any of these forms, you need to have this VA form 210972 completed in order for that to, in order for them to sign any of these forms. A fifth appeal option for PCAFC decisions is the clinical review process. So oftentimes the word appeal and review get used interchangeably, but technically it's called the VA Veterans Health Administration Clinical Review. And this is not an exclusive thing to the Program of Comprehensive Assistance, but it is one option that applicants can use. And there is no special form you use to have a clinical review through the Veterans Health Administration. You basically would write a letter saying why you don't agree. You could write on a napkin saying, I don't agree, really. I wouldn't necessarily do that because it's not very helpful, but most people write a letter saying why they don't agree with the decision, and you bring it to your patient or patient advocate. And at the Sioux Falls VA Health System, the patient advocate number is 605-336-3230, extension 6688 is the patient advocate. You also can drop an appeal off in our Dropbox, which is actually right outside my office for the time being. This is I'm in office 174, or on the first floor of the Sioux Falls VA Hospital. And it looks just like this in the picture. And we check this daily. It's locked. And you also can get a hold of us at our direct number, which is the main number again, 605-336-3230, extension 5080. So in summary, to try to break this up a little bit more so it makes sense, these are the different appeal options for a Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers decision. So the purplish boxes, these are appeal options that are primarily done through the Veterans Benefits Administration process. So if you have ever filed an appeal on service connection decisions and whatnot, you're probably more familiar with some of these options more so than others. Well, the light blue one is through the Veterans Health Administration. So again, there's that legacy appeals process. That's for decisions that were before February 19th, 2019. And then you have that higher level review option if you want a senior level person to review the case. Supplemental review if you have information that wasn't available at the original decision. And you have the Board of Veterans Appeals as an option. And then each of these options has the different forms that you might use for that. And all of these, you might have to use this 10306 form to request information about your original decision if you don't still have that. But you also can do this Veterans Health Administration clinical review, which again, there's no formal form that's required for that. You just need to submit something in writing to the patient advocate to get that going, and there's no time limit of when you get that done. You can do that at any time. This can be done twice per PCAFC decision, and this is a nice option because these appeals or reviews, they're called, are processed usually within 45 days, so they're pretty quick. So hopefully this kind of breaks it down a little bit better for you. And again, for all of the formal VA forms, so everything that's not the Veterans Health Administration review, they all get mailed to the Veterans Affairs Evidence Intake Center in Janesville, Wisconsin. And that's that address there. So that's a really important address to remember for all these forms. That facility is the one that routes all of these different VA forms to where they need to go. Another document that we send out whenever there's a PCAFC decision nowadays is this changes to review and appeal options for the Program of Comprehensive Assistance, frequently asked questions. So this will review a lot of the things that were talked about in the videos and that I'm talking about now. And you can find this online as well. This is a publicly available document by typing this long address in. We can always send you a copy of it as well, but you will always get it whenever there's a decision made in our program. But that's what it looks like here. And again, who can help someone with an appeal, whether it's with the caregiver program or another VA decision? An accredited Veteran Service Organization, or VSO, can help you gather evidence to file a claim or request a decision or review, and they can act as your representative between you and the VA. They understand the processes, and they can kind of go to bat for you when it comes to these sorts of reviews or appeals. And these are free services. I can't stress that enough. They've completed training and passed tests to be considered accredited. So there are some services out there that call and say, hey, you know, if you pay us X amount of dollars, we'll help you, or if you give us a percentage of your claim, you can do that. You're welcome to use those services and choose what you want, but you do not have to do that. There are lots of free options to do that, and I would really consider what benefit there is to do that. Just because you pay for a service does not move the process any faster. They don't have any sort of special in to get you a claim approved any more than a free service does. So I would just really would caution you when someone's trying to offer money to help you file a claim. You can find if someone is an accredited representative or an organization is at this website that the VA has. And that goes for any sort of appeal or review or claim you're going to try to file. And just note that VA caregiver support staff, we can't help you file an appeal. Like, we can educate you like I'm doing for you today the best we can. And again, I am not a world-renowned expert on these kinds of appeals. It is, as you can see, a very complicated process. Just trying to break down the best I can for you where to find this information and where to start. But I can give you the tools. I can't tell you what to write in the appeal. I can try to answer your questions about why a decision was made, but I can't help you craft an appeal letter or an argument of like how you should get on the program. That's what a veteran service organization can do for you. So just please understand that we are not able to do that for you, but we will do everything we can to make sure you have the tools to figure out how you can advocate for yourself, or a veteran service organization can help you. So in Sioux Falls, just so you know, if you're figuring how do I get a hold of the caregiver support program or the person who is working with me while I was in the program or applying for the program, This is what our page looks like on the Sioux Falls VA website. Our general number is here and our extension is 5080. And we have a general email address as well. You can always reach out to us if you have a question and we'll try to point you in the right direction. And who else can help when it comes to questions about this appeal process? Because it is very complex and I'm sure it will change again at some point. As they've said several times in this video, is you can call the caregiver support line at this number here, and I will make sure that I have the updated hours up here on the screen from what they said in that other video. And then you can always go to caregiver.va.gov, and there is a page on the website about PCAFC appeals specifically that goes over all of this information. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you. Or on the first